Hey, Michelle here from thesoultranslator.com, and today in our episode together we are going to be talking about how empaths and HSPs and us sensitives can get a little more demanding. All right, so there is this kind of urban and shall we say modern day myth around empaths being sponges. The only reason I call this a myth is because it's not true on a certain level. I know that might go contrary to opinion, and you may even be kind of like going, oh, come on, Michelle, I feel like I'm taking everybody's energy on and I'm getting bombarded all the time. And I know what that feels like. Believe me, I know what that feels like. And I still am working on in my own practices energetically and in my own situations in my life. As I step out more and more into the public eye, I have to learn how to protect myself more and more. So I get it. I really, really do. That's the reason why I do the work that I do. One of the reasons, mainly because I love it. And also, this idea about empaths being sponges is the reason I call it a myth is because the only reason somebody feels like they are a sponge is because they're an unregulated empath, or that they are not aware enough of their boundaries, or they're not setting enough of their boundaries, or they're letting all these leaks happening and letting all these things happen to them and to their energetic bodies because they are not practicing enough self-awareness. Now, I understand if you haven't identified yourself yet as a true empath, that's like, kind of like I'm preaching to the choir, right? Because you're like, oh my God, that's what I'm feeling all the time. So it is really important that you do identify how you are an empath, what type of an empath you are, so that you can then work with yourself, right? Like if you think about it, if somebody is not is a wild mathematician and thinks that they're just really good at math, but everybody else is looking at them and kind of going, dude, do you realize you're actually a freaking genius? We have to recognize this in ourselves. We have to identify with something before we can actually start to learn how to work with it, right? So in my world, in my beliefs, being an empath, an HSP, or an intuitive, or any being empathic, there's a difference between empath and empathic, but they can overlap a little bit. But this is your, as I always say, your strengths are your sensitivities are your strength. The only reason somebody feels like they are a sponge is because they're not working properly with their empath self and with their energetic self. So often there's this feeling that we are the punching bags of the world and taking on energies. And yes, even when you're aware of yourself and working with yourself as an empath or sensitive, this is still going to happen. I'm not saying that this is like never going to, this is going to go away and you'll never take on, the feelings and thoughts and moods and energies of people around you. But what I am saying is with more self-awareness and more tools in your empath treasure chest, you can become an empowered empath and even, as I like to say, a warrior, a spiritual warrior empath, and as an entrepreneur, if you so choose, because you feel like you can be safe being you in the world as you are and helping with your gifts. So, now I want to talk today, that was a really long introduction into what I wanted to talk about today. There is this thing around empaths being givers all the time. It's not just a thing, it is actually very true. When we are not aware of our empath abilities or HSP levels or types of HSP or empath that we are, we can tend to just give energy over. It's like we're just these walking, here, you want some? Here, you want some? Here, why don't you have some? Oh, you're feeling that? Let me hold that for you. Oh, wow, okay, this is too much for you? I'll take it on for you. We can do that naturally and unconsciously. So because there is this natural state that we are like these pulsing this giving energy all the time to others because of our sensate self, the idea sometimes of being a taker is tough. This idea that we can also take what we want and be more demanding is not necessarily the most natural way of being for empaths and HSPs and intuitives and sensitives. So I want to offer 3 ideas here for you to play with. The first one is watching your language, using your language as a energetic shield, and also using your language as an energetic, shall we say, sword. So let yourself bring in more words in your vocabulary like I want, I need, this is mine, I demand. There's a lot of different words that you can insert here that really gives you more of a, I'm very good at giving, but I also want to receive. Because again, this idea that empaths, we're so natural givers that to take is something that's counterintuitive. And in fact, also it's something that is very wounding to the empath heart and empath sensitivities, because we do end up on a certain level being with these people who are takers, the classic empath or empathetic person and the narcissist. So the first thing is to look at your language, and whenever you hear yourself say, well, maybe, or, oh, that's okay, I'm all right with that, or yeah, I'll settle for that, or anything like that, I implore you, I demand of you to work with the frequency of your language as a way to create better boundaries and to declare what you want. The hardest question in the world, right? Okay, so the second thing is, this is similar but a little different. This is wishy-washy language. So often when empaths are speaking, we can hear them not wanting to insult anybody, not wanting to confront anybody, not wanting to offend anyone with their, wants and needs, going back to that number 1. It's not because empaths are spineless or weak-willed. It's because we are, to a certain extent, caregivers, and to a certain extent, people pleasers, and also very much connectors. That's where this comes from in the first place. So, we are wanting to be in right relationship. We're wanting to be connected. It's our most natural state, even if you're a total individual, like I have a very individual frequency. And also that ability to connect at very deep levels is like walking for us. It's really natural. It's where we thrive. It's where we're most comfortable. That's one of the reasons why we don't do a lot of small talk. So getting back to this wishy-washy, like not using language as a way to minimize you. So instead of saying I try, or kinda, or just, that's another big one, using words again that are definitive, using words that have a stronger boundary to them. So instead of saying, well, that's kind of, what I'd like, saying, absolutely, that's what I want. Using the language as a way to have a clearer boundary with yourself and with others. So the next thing is a very simple thing that you can do to work with your energetic, subtle energy body. And this is so easy, and we do it all the time if you are practicing meditation. And we see that people do this when they're meditating. It's a common practice. You have your hands that are just left open often, unless you're doing all those mudras and all that stuff. But generally, a lot of us will meditate with our hands resting open on our knees. Now, if you don't have a meditation practice, you can still do this, because you can just sit quietly and breathe for even 30 seconds and just let your hands be open, and imagine that your hands are these receptors, that your hands are bringing energy into you, into your sphere, or as I call your energetic environment, and your egg, let it come in and let your hands be these active receptors so that you can fill yourself up. So if you can imagine this idea of just these, whatever color light you want, but this beautiful receiving and allowing of light, of life, of energy, of crystallized sparkles, of glitter, however you happen to see the energy, however it happens for you. Just let yourself receive that, and letting your hands be open and receptive. The saying that, we can't, a open hand receives, you can't receive something with a closed fist. So please do practice that, whether you're in meditation or whether you're simply quietly sitting and just taking a moment to chill. Open up your hands. A lot of us walk through the world with these kind of closed hands. I will often have to teach bring awareness when I'm in conversation or something to just stretch open my hands, because we can start doing this contracting thing. And the more we can practice this open-handed gesture and letting ourselves receive, if you need to in this time, you can say, I'm open to receive. I'm open to receive. We want to flip some of that habitual frequency that a lot of empaths and HSPs and sensitives can be in a constant state of giving. We need to be filling ourselves back up energetically and spiritually and mentally, physically, psychologically, in all those ways. So those are 3 ways for you to be able to create more of a sense that you are a receiver as much as you are a giver. And it's okay to want and to take and to allow, because that way we can then give more of our beautiful hearts and souls to those who we choose to. All right, thank you so much. My name again is Michelle from thesoultranslator.com, and I will see you in the next episode.